Okay, welcome everybody. What day is it? It's the 9th of October, 2025. And obviously the report came out from MIT. The link will be in the video, beneath this video. It's called the Gen AI Divide State of AI in Business 2025. And I had a read of it, but I thought we'd do this together. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and even the executive summary, executive summary is quite interesting, right? That's a really bold statement. Report uncovers a surprising result, and that 95% of organizations are getting zero return out of $30 to $40 billion worth of investment. That's quite a broad term, though, right? What does that investment mean, right? You can't in things like when you're adopting, when you're embracing, when you're being embraced by machine intelligence, and we're going to talk about what that really means. It's not really about a general term of enterprise investment. You've got to get down into the weeds, right? And almost the next paragraph starts to give you a hint of why people might be having problems and why enterprises especially might be having problems, right? You've got this line: tools like ChatGPT and Copilot are widely adopted. If that's where you are with your machine intelligence adoption, then I can tell you that's where the problem is. I work in this discipline, have done since before ChatGPT. And it's really interesting. Over 80% of organizations have explored that. Organizations they've contacted, that took part in this survey have been, have explored or piloted them, and nearly 40%. Only half of that reported deployment. And just right, these tools enhance individual productivity, not P&L performance, right? So there's a disconnect immediately there from why is productivity gains not translating into P&L performance? Well, there's a difference between those two, right? And there are many steps between productivity in maybe a technology discipline inside your business and a P&L gain, right? There's a lot more that goes on, and it depends on how you look at your P&L and so on and so forth. And it's meanwhile, enterprise-grade systems, custom or vendor sold, are being quietly rejected. This is weird, right? Enterprise-grade systems. What does that really mean, right? We're going to go through this. I'm not going to do this line by line. We'll be here forever. So it's interesting. Only 2 of 8 major sectors show meaningful structural change. There's an enterprise paradox of but lag in scale up. There is a reason for that, and we'll discuss that. Investment bias, budgets favor visible top line function of ROI back office. That's because the way people budget, and there is a line a bit later on in this report which was quite shocking. External partnerships to twice the success rate of the internal builds. Yes, and there's another big reason for that, right? It's adoption is high and disruption is low is because, honestly, I think what's happening, and when I talk to people and when I go and talk to customers that I work with, everyone is still stuck in this idea that artificial intelligence is a tool, right? It's a tool, or it's a platform, or it's a service. And I think, when we talked, when the report talked earlier about adopting copilots and ChatGPT, it's like, as an assist, it's almost like machine intelligence knows what it is, and companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, and who else is there? Obviously there's people like there's a French company that completely goes out of my mind, Mistral, right? All these companies try and they seem to know what machine intelligence is, but the experience of that machine intelligence inside an enterprise, inside an organization, that's a different thing, right? And leaders, CIOs, CTIOs, CDOs, just stick C in front of anything you like. They don't seem to be getting it yet, that what they're looking at is a fundamental change. It's a morphing of their business. It isn't about I'm going to rip out microservices, magically put AI in there, agentic AI, and all magic happens. That's not what it is. But it may be why this is actually happening, right? If you are not looking at your process, but you're just trying to replace bits and pieces of it with AI, then no, you're not going to get a lot of disruption. Of course you're not, because you're not disrupting anything, right? In order to disrupt something, you have to disrupt something. You have to take a look at a process, a workflow, a business process, and go, well, this has evolved over a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, and some financial institutions a lot longer, right? You think that these things are going to change through regulation, but actually things are polished through regulation, but might not do that drastic change, right? Because, and rightly so, in any critical organization, in any critical industry, where the impact of failure and the radius of failure is high, you want to be conservative in the change, right, and in the disruption. But just giving, and I'll mention names here, right? Giving people GitLab Duo and going, hey, my engineers are better now. It's like, no, that's just not how it works. It really isn't, right? If you're talking about software engineering, you have to reimagine what the SDLC looks like, right? What is a feature? What is a sprint? What are the roles that humans do when paired with an artificial intelligence or a machine intelligence? Requirements become incredibly important, and we'll talk about that in another video. And we'll do some, we won't just talk about that, we'll do some work on it, and you'll see why a lot of the new frameworks and tools are really good if you know where and how to deploy them and how your people change to take advantage of them, right? But I think this is the problem. If you're trying to disrupt something, you have to disrupt it. You can't just go, and I see this a lot where people come to me and go, hey, we've got this microservices architecture, can I replace it with an agentic AI architecture? I'm like, did you learn nothing from microservices, right? And that's yet another thing that we'll go through, and maybe do some code in understanding the differences between microservices and agentic AI, and why the kind of industry norm, or the evolving industry norm, where people are trying to build these things, these agentic systems, but they haven't learned the lessons from distributed systems engineering, right? And that's critical. But anyway, it does talk a lot about the stock market and market share volatility. I'm not really going to get into that. That's not really something. I understand it, of course, and I understand how it impacts, but that's a whole different thing. And hopefully the audience watching this is much more around the architecture, engineering. And when I talk architecture and engineering, I mean not just technology, I mean process engineering, process architecture, and just organizational engineering, right? When you have a fundamental shift in the capabilities and capacities of your underlying platforms, your entire organization has to be reorganized. It has to be re-engineered. It has to be re-architected for the future. Not today, but for tomorrow. Because by the time most organizations change, adapt for today, it's already next year, right? And so you're always playing catch up. That doesn't work. And this is really interesting, right? Is it obviously media and telecom, professional services are always going to be up there, right? Efficiency gains, and this is true. I'll tell you that this is true. I think Adobe's trying to ask me if I'd like to summarize. No, you're all right. It's interesting that the rise of native AI content, and people talk about AI slop in development and technology, but I see a lot more AI slop in my feeds, right? And it's even harder and harder to find relevant information now because there is so much nonsense. And maybe that's hinting at the way that the commercial and reward model has to change. And hey, post-labor economics, let's talk about that at some point, and let's game that out, right? Yeah, technology is interesting. The efficiency gains means how many people can I get rid of, right? It really does. But what it should mean is how many people can I retask? And there's a reason for that, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. Yeah, health. These are all really, apart from this one, but that's showing a sign of why adoption and disruption is slow. But yeah, healthcare and pharma. Listen, I work in this, and like yes, there are AlphaFold, OpenFold, all those things are great, but it's not there to the point where it can that's going to get to a 4 or anything like that, right? It's really because there's still a great deal of uncertainty about how does this get used, how does the machine get used, and who's got the fluency in it, right? So fluency is really important when you're dealing with a machine intelligence in a new world. You have to be fluent in it, and maybe I run a video on how to become fluent on it, but it's not about it really isn't about just it magically turns up with a little box on your screen and it's not this, right? It's not this. If you can see at the bottom, I'm using I've got a subscription to Adobe. No one hate me, right? But I can type in things here. It's not that. That's not what it is in healthcare and pharma. That's not what it really is in the back offices of financial and organizations and advanced, and certainly not, right? Energy and materials like zero. Okay, that's a bit weird. There might be some interesting reasons for that, but we should take that with a pinch of salt. So yeah, and there's this weird thing, right, where it's like 60% of investigation, piloting, implementation. Now, I'm going to hold that point because there's a real reason for that, I think. And they touch upon it, but they don't investigate it too hard. Yeah, there's no such thing as a generic LLM chatbot. There really isn't. And pilot to implementation rate is high there. It is... it's the easiest thing you can do, right? It's like if you ever go... I mean, you're going to be watching this on YouTube probably, but... if you just type in AI agents, there's like 1 billion videos on how to create the next generation of chatbots, right? But actually, that's not very useful, right? And there's all sorts of reasons why that is and all sorts of ways that you can. Let's have a look at these myths. AI will replace most jobs in the next few years. Limited layoffs. Yeah, I mean... I wouldn't worry about what the consensus amongst executives is at the moment. I think 3 to 5 years, no one's giving you that in truth, right? No one's giving you you can't look that far ahead in the future. This is just weird how and I say this all the time to clients when people go, hey, I need a roadmap for the next 3 years. I'm like, I'll give you a roadmap for the next 12 months and I can only guarantee you the first 9. Because this thing is changing massively. You can't be sitting there going, this is what will happen in 5 years. Absolutely not. You need to start becoming, as an organization, far more flexible, far more agile, right, elastic, and the plasticity of your thinking at executive level, as leadership level, has to mature. It's not there at the moment. Limited layoffs from Gen AI. Yeah, I mean, that will turn up next year, right? And probably the year after that, it'll even accelerate more. It's not really linked on hey, how great is the model? It's what I was sort of touching on earlier on, which is how great has been the transformation in your process, in your workflow, in your approach to your business. That's what gives you the efficiencies of saying, I don't need these many people. And if you're clever as a leader, what you go, I don't need these people doing this. But I do have new things that I need, that imagination, that orthogonal ability, the ability to do orthogonal thinking, creativity, the novel creativity, because there is machine creativity and then there's novel creativity, right? Adoption is high, transformation is rare. Yeah, that's because people still think of it as a tool. They don't really understand that artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, is about the experience that a business, an organization, a human has. It's not about the thing itself, right? It's like, I like the wheel, right? But it's not because I like the wheel. It's because it makes my car go, and wheelbarrows and all sorts of other things, right? There is a reason, right? Well, this idea that artificial intelligence, whether that's GPT, whether that's Anthropic's Claude models or Gemini models or Qwen or whatever it is this transformative thing for your business. It's not. It's the experience of these things that is going to be transformative for your business. It's not going to be the thing itself, right? Enterprises are always slow in adopting new tech. I was there at the cloud thing, right? I was there when everyone was, financial services wasn't happy with cloud. It was someone else's kit. Enterprises are extremely eager to adopt AI. I mean, what does that mean? Buying an AI solution, and that's the problem, right? AI isn't your solution to a problem. This is the fundamental misunderstanding about artificial intelligence, about what it provides you, how it changes your business. Everyone's really enamored by, hey, this is amazing, I could do X, Y, and Z. No one really understands how to do it, because they're not really paying attention to, how quickly, novel discoveries by humans have been translated into approaches. Everyone says, can I just not pay $1 billion to Anthropic or Gemini or OpenAI, and it magically makes no, that's just not how it works, right? But enterprises are slow in adopting new technology, but they will be faster if they understood it's not a technology. Model quality, legal, data, and risk. I mean, it's not really model quality. If you're going for a frontier model, you're good to go. The models are good, right? But there are so many things here, right? Like, it's such a weird question to ask or a statement to say, because it's not the model's quality, right? There's a lot more that goes on underneath to make, I can make GPT, GPT-5 is great, but it's still pretty dumb if I don't know how to talk about it, and it's still pretty dumb about my discipline if I don't give it context properly and a proper RAG solution, right? Or fine-tuning, right? The best enterprises are building their own tool. Internal builds fail twice as often. Yeah, that's because people they're not really sure how to build it. They're not really sure what it means, and they're not really sure how to fund it. And funding is really important, and we'll see why in a minute. This is absolutely right. Employees who use, and this is because, and you have to be careful here, right? This is you have to be really careful here, because the reason why I think this exists is because it's cheaper for me to buy subscriptions than it is for my company, because I'm buying for me and my company's buying site licenses or a number of tokens, and seriously, and this is a huge thing about tokens, right? It is a fuzzy number that can be used to really, really profit. But it's also a fuzzy number that can be used that could, burn through your OPEX, burn through your operating funding, right? As a company, so you have to be really careful. Yeah, this is absolutely true. I see it all the time. Do I use LLMs in work? Absolutely, to do work tasks. Do I exploit? No, absolutely not. I don't sit there and go, I'm working for... No. But you know what's great about GPT or Claude or Gemini is if I'm... I've been doing this since I was 15. I'm nearly 50, right? So what am I really doing with my AI? It isn't that I'm asking particular solve this problem for me. I'm trying to explore a problem space, right? Now, normally, before the wide availability of the two, I'd just Google the hell out of it, right? Read some research papers, whatever, right? These days, I'm having a conversation with quite an eminent partner. I'm not exposing anything about a client, but I'm trying to work out my own thinking, and then that allows me to to sort of bring all of that knowledge, all of those extra lessons learned to what I'm developing. And actually, I'll do a video on how to do that, right? Because I do this all the time with people when I'm saying, hey, listen, you can think about your problems without breaking, rules, right? Breaking your internal rules or exposing, corporate or sensitive information. I mean, you never do that, right? That's just, if you've got someone doing that, it basically means they're probably not meant to be doing that job, right? Because they don't have that experience, right? It takes experience of your discipline in order to leverage machine intelligence to help your thinking. But if you're doing copy paste of here is my exact problem, go do it, you're gonna run slap bang into dare I say the Deloitte thing, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Investment. Yeah, this is weird, right? This is not surprising. The sales and marketing being the big thing, it really isn't. It's always what's seen as the lowest hanging fruit. There's no real surprises here. I'm surprised about smart ticket routing not being more. AP and AR automation, I'm not really surprised about that being low as well. The document summarization being low is a bit surprising though. And you guys please read through this. I'm not going to do a line by line as I said. The challenging change. Let's look at these barriers that they've detected. Unwillingness to adopt new tools is high. That's probably a comms problem. Model output quality. No, you see, it's not a model output. That there is telling me that it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the model is, what an agent is, what an auton is, what agency is, what autonomy is. And that will be why you've got poor user experience. Lack of executive sponsorship. There used to be an old saying, no one ever got fired for buying Oracle, right? And it's that kind of mentality of like, hey, I'm not going to get fired. I'm not going to lose my job, my pension, my investments, my shares if I don't sponsor this thing, but I might if I do, right? It's a culture of fear, and it's always going to be prevalent, right? Same thing in cloud. When we were trying to get cloud into places, it was the same thing. And challenging change management. Yeah. And there's something here, and that change management is probably hiding budgeting, right? And that's probably hiding budgeting in the lack of executive sponsorship as well. But these aren't surprising barriers, right? Generic tools win and lose because it's better, faster, and more familiar. Both use similar models, but this is the same principle. What going to remain stuck in the wrong side of the divide? Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? And it's because of your mindset. And actually, this might be an interesting time. Let me see if I can actually do this. That's my Amazon page. But let's search for what is it? Deloitte AR failure. Let's have a quick look at it. There it is. I mean, I'm gonna laugh. Actually, this is nonsense, right? This is absolute nonsense. The $440,000 that backfired. I mean, this is just nuts, right? I mean, this is weird, right? That there's this thing about AI failure, and the first thing is, hey, show a quick read. What? Government report is delivered, which was riddled with serious errors. Yeah. So this is actually a bit about why people turn their minds off when they're using commercial interfaces, right? Or consumer interfaces, because they know it's generic, so they're going to do more. They're thinking more. The minute you give someone an enterprise tool, they're going, oh, someone's done all the thinking for me, so I can just going to ask a random question, give me a report on blah, 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 go, yeah, okay, well, I mean, it's American spelling, I'll just change American spelling to English spelling, click, done, send, hey, great, I can go and play golf. And of course, then people go through it and then go, what is this? Like, none of this works. And it's because people turn their brains off. when they're using enterprise tools, because they're used to enterprise tools being, full of knowledge that they don't have to then use their minds in order to understand, learn, or share with the machine. And that's why most internal tools fail. It's also because most internal tools are built by people who are used, and this is not a any throwing shade, as the youngsters will say, on any internal dev teams. They're great developers, but they're used to developing auto microservices. They're used to developing a certain way. They don't really understand the model. They understand temperatures and stuff. They understand basic RAG, right, and so on. And hey, there may be some of them may be playing with agentic RAG paired with semantic RAG, right, and Gruff and Fusion RAG, and there's so many different types of ways of building context and giving grounding that you're like, hey. And so this is the problem, I think, with with enterprise tools. There's a lot more expected of them. Because people are used to an internal tool that they were used to before, having been built by people who understood the business, and therefore they don't have to think as much. But when you're using a consumer tool, you're thinking, hold on, I'm gonna be much more detailed in what I'm asking. I'm gonna be much more detailed about, or prescriptive about, where my boundaries are. And I think this is why, right? They don't really trust it more, right? They don't really trust it more. They just trust what they've told it more. That's the key. And then the answers are better. Of course they are, because you've given it far more context than you do your enterprise tool. I think that's it, right? This is weird. Her Cogna invested $50,000. That's not a lot of money in a specialized... I mean, break that down, right? $50,000 is not a lot of money if you want a specialized contract analysis tool for a mid-sized firm. And we all know how much law firms earn and what their margins are, right? I mean, you can look that up, right? $50,000? No, come on. That's... No. I mean, you think about... where did you get that from? Who developed that for you? Like, how much work... you pay for what you get. That is not enough. Put another zero on that. You're getting close, right? If you want a specialized contract analysis tool, $50,000, are you insane? No, that's not enough. You immediately know, that is not going to be good work, right? Rigid summaries with limited customer with, and I'll tell you what's really weird is that for $50,000, I'm not going to make any real claims because I don't know who the vendor was. I haven't seen the software, but I wonder if that was, and back, someone sitting there, one guy or two guys and a girl, whatever, sitting there and, chat GPTing this thing, right? Back in the day before GPT-5, right? $50,000 is not enough, right? Just immediately, if someone comes and quotes you for a specialized solution in a very specialized, highly regulated, very sensitive and critical vertical domain, and they go, hey, we can do that for 50K, you should be going, what? Right? I mean, know what you're asking for, right? That's not AI's problem. That's not a good sign. $20 per month general person. No one's using 20. No, listen, I have accounts with all the major ones. It's the $20 one doesn't cut it. So I'll say I'll call BS. I'll call BS on that. So interestingly, then the learning gap is really important, right? Barriers to core workflow, reveal the core issues, very limitations. Forgets context, doesn't account evolve from Michigan whenever. So this is the big episodic memory versus lifelong learning. So at the moment, I obviously work for Capgemini, and so I have to be very careful. One of you guys, any of you who want to talk about this in a commercial way, feel free to reach out to me. There is a way to fix this learning gap. And this is what I mean. This directly relates to why people trust it more and the answers are better, and why there's an unwillingness. This all links in together, right? Is AI doesn't learn. Well, it's not the model, right? It's not the model. If you had no memory and all the other things that go into making you a human, right? You people wouldn't prefer to work for you either, work with you either, right? Yeah, all of this is. I mean, it's very familiar, right? You know, sensitive. It's excellent brainstorming, and first round doesn't retain knowledge of a client preferences or law. No, of course it doesn't, right? I mean, you can do with projects, right? You can give it context that it keeps, but if you'd spend more than $50,000 on what is a specialized solution where you wanted to learn, get to know your, I mean, come on. I mean, this number now seems even more dumb, right? I'm sorry to say it, but it does. It feels more dumb. If you're a serious exec going, hey, I can do this for 50, someone's telling me they can do this for 50K, and then they're going to get something for 50K and go, oh my God, why doesn't it do X, Y, and Z, right? I mean, let me give you an example. I don't know why this is on my desk, but this is a. I think it's because I found it and I was like, I've actually lost the key, so I'm probably going to throw it away. But I'm like, I mean, this is for when I travel, right? I'm not going to put that. No one's going to use that to secure Fort Knox, right? So if you're going to pay, and that's like what, $5.99, $9.99. Right? If you're going to pay $50,000, I mean, you get what you pay for, right? If you want something that learns preferences, that aligns with the client, I mean, that's a lot more money, right? Because it takes a lot more skill set, it's a lot more thinking. It's not actually development time, right? Model training time, pipelines, all of that stuff, yes. But actually, most of this stuff today can be done if you understand how to do development with machines much faster, right? Cycle time. So I'm not surprised like they were having, this lawyer was having a problem with accumulates knowledge improves over time. Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, and this is all because there's a fundamental problem of understanding what artificial intelligence is, and everyone's putting way too many expectations on a model, right? So let's have a look at this. Next a bit. Positioning generators by customization, high customer agentic vertical SaaS, high memory and learning. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even put Copilot on here. Yeah, I mean, this if you're here, if you're at the low memory learning and low customization, I mean, yeah, you're not really serious about it yet. ChatGPT, you've got a lot of money. If you're having low customization with high memory and learning, you must have a lot of money, or someone signed off a big budget for you to just, throw at OpenAI. I think if you're clever, maybe that's not the right word. If you're forward thinking, probably not the right word either. You want to go for high customization, high memory. Agentic workflows. When everyone talks about AI agents, my teeth itch. People are like, I'm going to deploy 1,000 agents. I'm like, you're going to pay someone like me a lot of money in a couple of years' time to come and fix that mess. Don't do it. So yeah, and we'll talk about that a bit later on, and maybe as I said, we'll do some dev work. I mean, we won't do any dev work. I'll get. Actually, that might be a good time to sort of test Codex, Gemini, CLI, and Claude Code. Actually, and we'll get that out. And you'll see why honestly, like, yes, agentic systems, I don't like the word because it puts things in people's head. I like the term autonomous systems. How the best builders succeed. And you can read all this. So what do they say? Yeah, a vendor. I mean, this is... Yeah, and that's not just... I mean, that's an existing partner, right? Because you've got a lot of data in your existing systems. You're not going to go, sure, I mean, I've spent 10 years with this person or this company. Hey, you've got this amazing feature set. I'll just port all my data over. No, of course not, because you haven't got that relationship of trust. And that's, so I would, like I always say, when, vendors, new vendors have to have something so drastically different, which shouldn't be that hard to do, right? Think about, Monzo, right? The big thing for Monzo when I first joined them was, I can get like immediate like notifications. I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's actually what I want. And it's like pretty easy to move, right? At the moment, you guys don't, and we'll talk about this, why this is important. Companies don't have a lot of flexibility in moving because of contracts, etc. Right? Let's have a look. Yeah, don't get our approvals or data flows work, or your data flows and approvals just don't match, right? And there's a reason for that. Minimal disruption to current tools. Yeah, no one's going to use it. Yeah, I can't risk client data. I mean, this is okay. I mean, depends what you want, right? I mean, if you want to transform your business, you're going to take pain. There's no such thing as a painless transformation. There really isn't. Clear data boundaries. I can't risk client data mixing with someone else's model. Yeah, that's why even if the vendor says it's fine. Well, if you're in cloud, I mean, unless you've got your own dedicated hardware in the cloud, I mean, or Outpost. Is it Outpost, something like that? You're already mixing with someone else. There are boundaries. And a vendor shouldn't be saying it's fine. A vendor should be giving you a legal cover. That's the whole point, right? And saying, yes, yours is protected, right? Your model training is protected. Or build your own. It's not actually that hard. If you have the right vendor, you can use things like RunPod, right? And, some vendors and some places will give you, dedicated compute, right? And you'll pay for what you need to use. And if you're large enough, you build your own. Make NVIDIA happy. Make AMD happy. Go spend some money. It's a pay-to-play win. It's a pay-to-play and pay-to-win game. It's not that's what it is. Why would I use that? That's hilarious. Yeah, that is actually quite hilarious. And that's, again, it's because you've either not paid for the right thing or you just haven't understood. And our process evolves every quarter. If the AI can't adapt, we're back to spreadsheets. Yeah, once again, you bought the wrong thing. Right, you bought the wrong thing there, if that's what you're getting. Yeah, it's... This is funny, right? We receive dozen pitches daily about AI-powered procurement tools. However, our established BPO policy, we'll monitor to wait for AI-enhanced version, then switch to an unknown vendor. Yeah, I mean, once again, you know what you know. You know what you know. And all I can say is if you're part of a new vendor trying to pitch to a client, you've got to do the usual thing, right? I'll talk about a bit of an aside here. We all know that Johnny Ive and OpenAI, right, IO Labs, etc., and it's meant to be something in 2026. Sam Altman saying it will be longer because they're trying to work things out. You got to remember that, when Johnny Ive was at Apple, right, and when Apple was an actual innovative company and just not an operational company. That's what happen when you take an innovator. When you lose the innovator at the head of your organization and you put some ops guy or sales guy in, there are plenty of places for those. But if you're not going to innovate, you're not going to innovate, right? And then you've got, he didn't put an iPod in my pocket. He put 1 million songs in my pocket. He didn't give me an iPhone. He gave me the internet in my pocket, right? So, what does that mean? How do you put the machine in your pocket? Is it even in your pocket? Is it under your skin? Would I like to have something under my skin? Do you remember those films? I think it's the latest or the modern version of Total Recall, right? With the screen that pops up. I'd love that. Absolutely love that. I definitely have that, right? I definitely because I am a sucker for anything that's cool and cyberpunk. I'll definitely put some contact lenses in if it displays all the things I want to display. Why not? I definitely do that. I'm thinking about buying, some of those AR glasses. I'm not sure I'm going to justify that kind of spend at the moment, but who knows? But this is the thing, right? If you're a new tool provider, you got to be transformational. You got to make these people go, we can't wait for that. You got to make it easy to bring it over. Hey, does your product work in Salesforce? Hey, we have a great integration approach. You want us to work in Salesforce? We can make it work in Salesforce. Right? I mean, be scrappy. If someone asks, can your thing do this? Say yes. Go get a Salesforce subscription and make it happen. Right? You've got to be scrappy if you wanna win these kind of people over. Playbook for crossing the device. Yeah. I mean, yeah, fast wins, narrow scope, fails. I mean, this is weird. Complex execution. Well, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Is it me? If you've got a broad scope and you've got a complex execution, once again, as I said right at the beginning, change your process. Have a look at the process. What does that look like? Once again, people are trying to, I'll take this out of the process, now buy this AI tool, I'll just hammer that into play. Oh, it doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. Are you nuts? You've got to change the process. If you're going to change your approach, if you're going to put a non-deterministic thing into a deterministic process, you better make that process able to tolerate a non-deterministic component, right? So process re-engineering actually far more important than technology re-engineering if you're going to really succeed with machine intelligence, right? So let's have a look. Referral networks, blah 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 blah. Yeah, no one's, people are buying around board member, informal peer, vendor partnerships, partner referrals. Yeah, I mean, yes, right? No one wants to be the first to go to a product, so it's not surprising this is how it is. It will change, though. It will change. Enterprises are locking in learning capable tools. And NANDA MCP will define which vendors are going to, adapt over time, incorporating persistent memory. Of course it is. This is what worried me. This. There you go. That's what worried me. We're currently evaluating 5 different Gen AI solutions, but whichever system best learns and adapts to our specific processes. Once we've invested time in training a system to understand our workflow, switching costs become prohibitive. Yeah, that's a problem. You are going to have a great deal of problem because you'll get stuck and you're making the same mistake there that your predecessors made, but your organization might no longer have the organizational memory of it. You are too stuck in believing that if you spend X amount of time under an MOU or something, of course these vendors want you to spend lots of money, will highly fine tune you this and will lock you in. No, your training should be yours, right? When you write software and you deploy it on AWS, if you want to migrate to Azure, do you have to rewrite your software? No, of course not. You have to refactor things to maybe take advantage of Azure capabilities over AWS or GCP capabilities over either those two, but it's still your code. So your training, your model weights, your knowledge bases, all of this stuff, make sure your contracts demand that you own it. Don't get stuck into the thing of I can't move because I'm stuck in Salesforce or everything's in Oracle or everything's in this or everything's in that and it'll take me like day blah blah blah. Don't get into that again, right? Come talk to someone who understands this, who knows how to do this, to go, how do I basically demand X, Y, and Z, right? And we help you, and I'm not gonna, but this is an important piece to know. You are not going to spend 18 months. If you spend 18 months embedding in when 1 or 2 and go, that's it for the next decade, I'm sorry to use this terminology, but you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. This thing changes every 6 months. If you don't understand that, you've got a problem. And I'm being very honest here because I see this all the time and I say it exactly how I'm saying this here. If you don't understand it, you've got a problem, let's talk. Right? It's important that you understand how this works. So one of the key things to do is have a look at something called no budgeting. And this is a very important thing. So let's have a look. Handelsbanken. No. And I do this because I'm not really. Here I go. Beyond budgeting. It's 2018. Oh, there you go. Beyond budgeting. There you go. It's a fairly recent one. I'll put all these links in, but have a really good look at what beyond budgeting means, right? It's a bit longer than just, I mean, this is already running into nearly 3/4 of an hour. I'm not going to go into it. We want to finish the next 18 pages. But, there are approaches you can take, and you need to take them. Please don't get locked into an 18-month horizon. You're doing yourself and your organization no service there whatsoever. Yeah, strategic partner. I mean, this is pretty usual, right? Develop with a vendor, build or buy vendors. I have a problem with V's and W's apparently. Yeah, this might. I mean, no insufficient data, but this might be the best way to do it actually, rather than just purely internal. And this certainly is in. And once again, watch your contracts, but this is the best way to make sure you suck all of that knowledge into your organization, because it will become far cheaper for you to do purely internal. But your people need to understand how to learn, how to build with these things. And if you're going to do that, you either need to buy those people because they're expensive, or you need to pay someone who has those people on board, and then build with them, learn with them, and then at some point you can change that relationship. Right now, that's being completely honest. Buyer practices that cross the divide, deep customization. Yeah, this is true. Yeah, benchmarking is really important. Yeah. Yeah, an AI initiative of frontline managers, absolutely. Who's your client, right? Who's your client? When we were saying, sorry, I'm sitting on this stool because I have a standing desk and I keep wobbling. You didn't really need to know that. What I'm saying is, be careful about central labs. If you're developing stuff, they're going to create cool stuff and they're going to be like, hey, you guys should use this. What you really want is requirements. I'll do a video on requirements to retirement, and we'll take a process through. And it's about that. It's about requirements becomes really, really interesting, really, really important and critical to get right. And you need to understand where those requirements are coming from. The requirement ideally comes from your end user. So if you're a financial institution, it's the person who's drawing money out of their account, or putting money into their account, or investing with you, or saving with you. Right? Now, you can't speak to all of those people, so you need to start to listen to the people who are interacting with those people, the systems who are interacting with these people. So how do you understand that signal, right? So this is an approach called, what I call ATIO, which is Advanced Information and Interaction Optimization, right? And that's about understanding how to get the interaction and the information models out of how people, how bots, how other products are interfacing with yours, what works, what doesn't, right? Because those are the signals, the feeds for the data-driven features, right, that you really need, right? And that's really important. And frontline managers, well, frontline certainly depends. Frontline managers, I don't like the word manager. It depends on what a manager is, right? There are people who are managers and there are people who are leaders. I'd rather talk to frontline leaders. They're going to be far closer to understanding what your end user, the people who feed your P&L, the ones that you really want to keep happy, what are they looking for, right? Yeah, I mean, it depends on what business you're in, about, where the ROI. Yeah, this tracks, right? Lead qualification, sure, if you're in that kind of thing. Customer retention, yeah. Customers are getting a little bit more savvy, though, right? A customer of today is not the same as a customer of like 2 years ago, right? My daughter, who's 16 already, good lord. She's going to be huge in 2 years' time when she's properly, she already has a bank account, etc. But she will, in a couple of years' time, investing, whatever, as she starts working, she's going to be a different kettle of fish to me, right? So you need systems that will help give her those things, because if you don't, a challenger certainly will. Yeah, displacement. So job thing, and this is a whole thing that I think I'll need to do a separate video on. latent alternate labor value affecting 39 million positions. Yeah, this is really weird, right? But this is really weird. This is correct, right? This is the way. This is the way, right? You should prioritize candidates who demonstrate not tool proficiency, because your tools will change, but they understand how to use artificial intelligence. So when I hire into my distinguished engineering team, I don't really care if you know how to use CLI, which model you use, blah, blah, blah. But I understand, do you understand RPO? Do you understand Fusion Rag? Do you understand the concepts? Okay, let's work through a problem. Why would you have used that? Right? So how you assess a person is different, right? And if you're on my LinkedIn, I did a whole distinguished engineering piece about how we hire and who we look for. And I think you don't have to, not everyone's going to want to hire distinguished engineers, but I think there's a lot to take away from that in terms of what should I be looking for in the people that I hire for all of these roles, right? It's not the tool, it's they understand machine intelligence, right? The agentic web. I really hate that word. This is, I'm not sure this is correct. The infrastructure foundations, that's not really correct. I'm sorry, MIT, I don't believe that MCP, A2A, and Nanda are the infrastructure foundations. No, they're early things. Like agentic is not the destination. It's an early exploration. You're not there yet. They're not even foundations. This stuff will shift a lot. And they're missed, I think it's there's something from Cloudflare on what is it? Code mode, that's it. Code mode, the better way to use MCP. I'll put this here on the thing anyway, and it's missing things like that. So yeah, I'm not gonna spend any time on the agentic web. I don't. I think it's just. I think that's right up there with the. Remember when Microsoft, if you're old enough, Microsoft had their when the internet was first around, they had those kind of channels that you could. They envisaged that because then they could, organizations could control the media that you were consuming, etc., and content, and fundamental misunderstanding of what the internet was. And I think the agentic web is once again a fundamental misunderstanding of what artificial intelligence really means. I think it's important. You should go and read all of this stuff. Please go and read this. Happy to, please have a discussion under the comments. Reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss anything with you. It's what is this? What is this? Project Iceberg. What is Project Iceberg? Oh, can AI do your job? Yeah. Access. Yeah. Can AI do my job, for example? Let me answer, can AI do my job? Not yet. I don't think it's that far away. Now, the machine can't do my job. And I've said this to my leaders, my boss, many times, which is if you spend 2 weeks with me, 4 days a week, and we just spend all day and I teach you how I do this, then actually you can absolutely, you won't need me. And if you spend another 2 weeks understanding how that information shortens your cycle time for other things, which means that gives you the time to do, to work with the machine on the stuff that you'd have come to me for, boss, you absolutely can. And that will happen. I mean, maybe not here where I work at the moment, but the machine can't do my work at the moment. A well-trained and someone who understands the machine and understands what I do, absolutely, I can be replaced, and that's just what it is. So hopefully this has been. It's nearly an hour long video. I thought it'd be a lot quicker than that. Yeah. So look, it's interesting. Go read everything. I'm Kushal. I'm going to do a lot more of these things. Keep calm and ask Kush. Always remember that, people. And I'm going to start getting into some other bits and pieces. Maybe do some dev work, show you a project end to end. I saw this video on YouTube on developing an app until I make $1 million. I'm like, I'll show you how to develop apps, right? I'll show you how to develop full stack applications, front end, middleware, back end. Will definitely work with OpenAI's Agent SDK. I'm really excited with that. Not really that fussed about the agent builder, but I understand it, and I understand why that will be the future. But we'll have fun with Agent SDK. Anyway, I hope you have a great day if it's the beginning of your day, and I hope you've had a great day if it's the end of your day when you watch this. But God bless you, and I will speak to you soon.